Well, hello everybody. We are live, and if you're in the mortgage industry, you know what it's like when things don't go right, and that's kind of what happened this morning. We had some technical issues, but hey, we're here now, and we're sorry if you have been hanging out and wanting to catch this live, but we're here now, and David is a busy guy, and David, I'm grateful for you making the time today because you've certainly got other things that you could be doing. So thanks for making the time.
My pleasure.
Yeah, man. So just by way of a little bit of background, you and I have never actually directly worked together, I don't think, right?
Correct.
But we've known each other for a long time,
Long time.
and I think you've had some connection with Building Champions over the years, and so clearly that's what you owe all of your success to. That goes without saying.
Actually, I will tell you, Building Champions changed my life. They
Dude,
really did.
tell that story. Let's start there.
And Bill did not pay me for this. It is a
I did
true
not
story.
pay you for that, nor do I know the story is coming.
Right.
So tell us about that.
Well, I was really busy and the business was growing, and I think I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I was just working like a madman. I had no balance in life. And I heard about this coaching company, and I'll never forget calling up Daniel Harkavy and saying, well, what do I need a coach for? I mean, I'm really busy. And so he explained certain things about it, and I jumped in, I did the coaching, and it's amazing. It gave me a balance. It actually helped me grow my business.
That's so
I had
good,
my
man.
first coach, Kate Wilson.
Yeah.
We spent about a week on the phone. She said, Jaffe, man, that's it. You got to pay me to fly out and spend a couple days with you and fix this thing. And she came out, and I went from 3 people to 9 people overnight on my team.
Wow.
We structured it. I brought someone on, a production partner, and it just exploded from there. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I still worked really hard, but I could take vacation.
No kidding.
I had some balance. It was
nice.
Phenomenal.
So that was unexpected and unpaid for. So thank you for that. But I mean, that is what we do, right? That's the way that Building Champions is structured. And Kate was my first coach, by the way.
Oh.
So I totally get that experience. So Kate was a no BS, like, right? She would just call a spade and tell you what needed to happen. And great coach.
Well, let me tell you a quick Kate story. She basically comes out, we put the thing together, and then she calls me up when it's in place, and she says, if you're not home by 6:30 at night, I'm going to fly back out there to kick your ass.
That's classic Kate Wilson. So Kate, I hope you get to watch this, view this, listen to this at some point. But I mean, look, man, that's the name of the game. And now this is a guy. So let me now say this. I posted this in the Facebook graphics visual, but I want people to know why we're talking. I mean, first of all, you really and truly, you're the guy that I always brag about when I talk about database, because this is an easy business to, when you're busy, ignore the importance of that. And you just seem to be the guy that, and I want to hear the story, but you seem to have at some point latched onto this idea that I need to hang on to people that I talk to, and I need to feed and water my database. And so here's what people need to know. 2020 estimated 625 units.
Correct.
And a little over 300 million.
That's correct.
That's a pretty good year.
Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah, I mean, you could get by, right? You could get by on that. So
yeah.
I'm ridiculously proud of you. So I called you a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I don't want to be like that guy up on stage that just makes up numbers. I want to know the real numbers for you. And you said that you had 17,000 people in your database, which, by the way, I think I mentioned to you is half the size of the town that I live in. Like, it really is. And you said, I think you said that we're actively marketing to about 2,500.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's such an amazing story. And for people that are in the mortgage or the real estate business, primarily the group that I'm connected to, man, I want them to be so encouraged by your discipline around this, David. And what, there's somebody who's where you were 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right now, that's listening to this, that needs to hear, what was it that got you latched onto this idea of, I need to hang on to contacts with people and stay in touch with them?
The unfortunate thing about doing this live, people can see what I look like. So clearly my charm and good looks were not going to be enough to grow my business.
Whatever.
So
Whatever.
My dad had a retail business for 35 years, and I always grew up with my dad saying the customer's always right. And it was a small town, and it was repeat business. I was brand new in the business, and I went to a mortgage seminar, which was brand new 30 years ago.
Yep.
And they started talking about database, and I started thinking, well, wait a second, why should I sell someone twice if I can sell them once?
Right.
And I had that philosophy from my dad about the customer's always right. And my whole philosophy from day one was to wow the customer and create a raving fan. And that way I didn't have to go out and keep reinventing the wheel. And I'm not a natural salesman at all. I still find it difficult after all these years. So I just wanted people to respect what I did.
Nice. Nice. Well, mission accomplished. And I don't know if your dad's around to see this, but pretty amazing what you've built, dude. I mean, pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really mean it. It is. I mean, look, I don't know if you know this, because you wouldn't be traveling in the same circles that I do as it relates to this, but before 2020, I think the average loan originator did 3 units a month. 3.
Yeah.
You're doing a little more than that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're flying at a level that is just not, it's not what most people can relate to. And so, you know, I don't know if you remember, but for years I interviewed top realtors for Todd Duncan for the real estate performance system. And then later it became TalkJet. And that's a whole nother conversation. Actually, do you remember you and I had a conversation about 10 years ago?
That. Yep,
okay. So we'll come back to that story. But I guess my point in all of that is that it's very easy to get into this business and sort of, I don't know, dude, dabble, like partly show up and kind of do okay and make a living, because, you know, we're compensated well, right? I mean, you're compensated well. But something, again, there's something that happened in your mind, and maybe it was Kate early on, and maybe it was you seeing other performers and recognizing that, wow, if that top performer can do that and that's possible, kind of like that. You remember the old Roger Bannister 4-minute mile thing in the 50s? Like nobody can run a mile in under 4 minutes. And then the year that he did it, like another 200 or 300 guys did it right afterwards. So you tell me what changed, right?
Well, you know, when I started, if you were a $30 million a year producer, you were huge.
Wow.
And then, you know, like Greg Frost was the first guy who did like 100 million a year. And now, I mean, this has been an amazing year, but when those numbers come out, I mean, there's going to be hundreds of people, I think, above 100
oh my goodness
this year. It's going to be amazing.
Crazy numbers.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is, not everybody wants to be a David Jaffe, right? So there's
blessings.
The majority of people that are listening to this right now just probably don't. I mean, you know, let's be real. They're not going to push for those kind of numbers. But if you had a room, and you kind of do right now, if you had a room with 100 or 1,000 loan originators, and there was one thing that you could share that has been a difference maker for you, or for you was kind of the final tumbler in the lock, that you just said, wow, this allowed me to really scale my business, what's the first thing that comes to mind as an answer to that question?
Well, I'll give it as a sort of a 2-part answer. So for me, if I'm going to be at work for 10 or 12 hours, I want to do as much as I can in that 10 or 12 hours. So what's the point of going to work and not doing 50 loans? Why do 10 if you can do 50?
Totally.
So I always had that, you know, driver mentality, super, you know, A personality.
Yeah.
And I think what really set me over the top was understanding that I could create one client that would not only come back to me, but then refer me to other people. And it was like the scenario where you have the penny, where if it doubles every day,
right?
I can't remember how long it takes, but if put a penny
compound interest,
it's millions of dollars in a year or two, whatever.
Right.
And that's really my mindset behind it.
Wow, I got to tell you, that is huge. And I know it's something that Todd Duncan has talked about for years, and I forget what the term is that he uses, circle of influence maybe, but it's like that person has neighbors, a financial planner, an insurance agent, right? It's like all these connection points. So So if that's true, then how would you coach a loan originator to begin that process? I mean, I know that your dad's voice is ringing in your ears about the customer is always right and you want to take care of them and it's one sale. But how do you do that? I mean, that's a good philosophy, but how does David do that?
Yeah. So people say, oh gosh, I've never really had a database. I need to do it. What's the best database? And I realized after all these years, the best database is anyone that you use.
Yeah,
because
for
people
sure.
don't use it. So the first thing is pick a database, a CRM, and just use it.
Yep.
And then be absolutely brutal about putting every single person in there.
Nice.
That would be a non-negotiable. So
I just want to interrupt you for a second. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to pull them out if people haven't heard it. So when you say put every person in there, are you speaking only of past borrowers?
So that's a good question. So in the last 15 years, it's just been borrowers that I've closed and it stayed in there. But in the first 15 years, every person I talked to, whether I did a loan for them or not, that's why my database is probably more than 17,000 because I actually had to delete names. It was getting too big.
Wow.
But they would get my newsletter every single quarter, even if I'd never done business with them.
Yeah.
And they got to the point where I didn't need to do that. But I think if you're starting out, every person you talk to about a loan, you want to get their name and their address and do a snail mail. I know snail mail is crazy, but that's another way to get to them. Or if you have an email contact system, the more they hear from you, you're playing the numbers game. And as your database grows of closed loan customers, you won't need to do that as much. You'll be able to milk your own database.
For sure. So are you using physical mail now?
I am doing physical mail 12 times a year.
Wow. 12 times a year.
Yep. Email, look, how many emails do you get that you delete? Okay. They get caught in spam.
For sure.
And so I'm just looking for every opportunity to hit them one way or another. And, it's crazy. I do 4 newsletters a year. I do 8 Who I Helped postcards. And it's crazy after all these years, people see those postcards.
It's amazing.
And they always comment. And the Who I Helped postcard basically says, in their real life scenarios, I lay out, this is a scenario, this is a solution, and this is, moral of the story is work with someone who has all your experience.
It's so cool, man. So let's blow people away. Do you happen to know your budget for your direct marketing?
It's about $2,200 a month because there's about 2,500 people getting it. It's just under $1 for mailing and printing and everything.
It's actually a lot less than I thought it was going to be, but I love that. David, I like, hallelujah. This is, I don't know if we're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah right now. I'm pretty sure we're in Hanukkah.
At my house, we're doing both.
Nice. Why wouldn't you? I don't know if I ever told you that. I went to Fairfax High School in LA and I got to celebrate both holidays as a goy, as a Christian guy. I was celebrating all the Jewish holidays too. So good for you. Yeah. All right. So I have to tell them the story that I alluded to, and I'm wondering if you're remembering the same one that I do, but whether you called me or I called you, I'm guessing this was 10, maybe 15 years ago, but it was, I've always done events for realtors, right? And they were for realtors sponsored by lenders. And you and I were having the conversation. And it was the way I remember it is the next day you were like, you know what, man, rates just went down. I don't have to do that now. My phones are going to blow up. But hey, we'll talk again soon. So I never heard from you. You never called back. I think we should probably do a realtor event. Oh my goodness, that is so funny to me. But what's so telling about that is it's the database, right? You knew that, oh my goodness, if the rates drop, I'm just going to be, I don't need new business. I don't need a bunch of realtors sending me new business. We're going to be swamped. Is that the way you recall that?
Oh yeah. When rates dropped in March of this year, I just looked at my team and said, it's game over right now. I mean, our pipeline tripled probably within 30 days.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious what you see because I mean, look, you're at the top of your game. You've been in the business a long time. You're in rarefied air in the Scotsman's Guide. And I'm just curious with the people that you connect with, what you see. I think the MBA is saying we're probably going to be off 25% over 2020, less refis, more purchase, housing for clearly is blowing up. But then I just heard a guy tell me the other day that his capital markets guy, I'm trying to figure out what the estimate would have been. I think they were saying our goal is actually 20% up over this year. So I'm just curious, what do you see, man? You talk to more borrowers than any human being I know. What do you think? What do you see?
I got to tell you, I can't believe this run has been going on. But, in 2002, we had this great run, and that thing went on for about 3 years.
Right.
And then we had another huge run in 11, 12, 13, and half of 14. I think we're going to run again next year. I mean, I have hundreds of borrowers in my database that I need to get to about refinances.
Wow. So
I think that'll run. But where I want to caution people is when rates move up even just a 0.5%, when they go to a whopping 3.25%,
it's insane.
It's going to be blood in the streets.
Yeah.
Margins are going to compress. There's
Yeah.
going to be 10 people fighting for every loan. We did this in 2018. It was a very rough year for my business. I mean, in general. Okay?
Relatively speaking, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But, we're going to see that. So what I would recommend to anybody in this business right now is get that database rolling so that you can milk every possible refinance you have right now, but build that database so when rates go up, you can continue to have business. So less than 50% of my purchase business is from realtors. The other 50% is just my database.
Yep.
So as rates go up, we'll still be able to survive fine because we have that database.
That is such great wisdom, man. And, it's funny. I talked to a guy the other day. I don't coach him, but we were talking about his database, and he laughed and he said, I use ACT. And I said, that's really funny. Like, I haven't heard anybody tell me that for probably 10 years. But to your point, it's like that they used to say about the best camera, right? It's the one that you have with you. And the same thing is true with the database. So I really think that's strong advice, David, because I'm telling you, man, there are people that are listening to you right now that are thinking, either they own companies and they were going to invest a lot of money to build some proprietary system. And I'm just going to tell you, here's my experience with that. Every time, not most times, every time I've heard somebody say that, there's a point at which they came to regret it because it's just so much money. Like there's something out there. Just go with something that's out there. I mean, Salesforce owns the universe clearly in this space right now. But there's other great systems. There's really, really good systems. Your whole point is, I don't care if it's 3x5 cards in a plastic box like we used to use in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. But you got to have a database. You got to be able to follow up with people. So the point is, you wake up every morning without a sense of, I have to go hunt what I'm going to kill. Like you've got a zoo. Of course, you can't kill animals in the zoo. You've got a, what do they call that? Like in Africa, you've got a large area. You've got thousands of acres with animals running around. And yeah, I just think it's such an enviable thing. And what I've been telling people about this interview, David, is that I think what you're going to hear from him is this is a guy that made a decision early.
Within the first 3 months of my business.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was a Todd Duncan seminar.
That is so cool. So like shout out to Todd. That's a big deal, man. That's like somebody listening to a Dave Ramsey podcast and saying, you know what, I'm not going to do credit anymore and I'm going to do the debt snowball and I'm going to pay down debt, or somebody that goes to the gym and says, I don't like working out, but I'm going to do it every day. And then you look at them and they're like, you're how old? You're that guy right now. So I'm so encouraged to be able to tell this story. And I want to know what else, if you had that room of 100 or 1,000 loan originators, and you kind of do, if there was something else that you would just say, man, I have learned over the years, like around your team. We haven't touched on your team. I think you said you have 8 full-time and then 1 part-time marketing person at this point. Is that right? And that kind of ebbs and flows a little bit with volume, like mortgage companies do.
Yeah.
What have you learned? Say it again. Sorry.
We really ramped up the team in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Volume. Yeah.
But what have you learned there? I mean, in terms of team building and like where should you be? What are the things that other people should be doing? How do you hire? What are your lessons there?
So I'll rewind just a little bit. I think when it comes to the database, what I would tell a room full of people is position yourself up front with the borrower. And I tell them, my goal is to create a raving fan so that you can become a lifelong client. And so throughout the process, we have steps in place where we're asking for that referral and reminding people we're here, which is why we're doing the 12 months of snail mail, and we're also doing 12 emails. Okay. So we're really hitting 24, 25 times a year. So position yourself up front so they know that. Also position yourself up front that you want to be a full resource to them. You're not going to close a loan and disappear. You, just like you hire a financial advisor to manage your assets, we're going to manage your debt. So good. We use our rate watch program. We tell them, look, if interest rates fall, we're going to reach out to you. Nice. So we use Optimal Blue. Most companies, they probably own 60% of the marketplace.
Sure.
You know, after you close a loan, you can just go back into OB and put in a target rate and a scenario, and it will alert you that these 5 or 10 people can do it. So position yourself up front as your database, so it's not a one-time deal.
Great. Yeah, that's great, man. That's really good advice. I love the idea that you set the expectation up front that we want you to become a client for life, and we want to manage your debt for you, and you're going to be hearing from us. So does that spill over into the expectations about, so here's who you're going to be hearing from next? Like, I think people would be interested in, what does an initial consult look like for you? How are you doing that? Are you doing it by Zoom or phone? How long does it last? How do you hand them off?
So I like to do all the pre-approvals myself. I like to do all the refinance structures myself. That's my gifted zone. When I first got in the business, I was either going to become a financial advisor, I was going to become a mortgage guy.
Nice.
And so I'm trying to marry those two items. So I like to do all the consulting up front. So I will ask them questions on a purchase, what their comfort level is for mortgages, for their payment, what target purchase price, talk about their savings, talk about payoff of debt, the whole structure. So that's where I do it.
Nice.
So once I
how long does that typically take, do you think?
I will do, it's funny, pre-COVID, I was actually having people come into my office. It would take about 45 minutes. Now I'm doing them on the phone. I'm not even doing Zoom. So it's about 30 to 45 minutes consulting on the pre-approval.
And I know I keep stacking questions, and I apologize, but post-COVID, will you go back to live or not?
At this point in my career, I'm not going to go back to live, but I will tell you, if I was still looking to grow the business, absolutely, because the amount of shopping was almost zero. I mean, it was such a different experience that we were providing the client. The minute they got a contract, it was a done deal.
Yeah.
Okay? So for sure, if you're looking to grow your business face to face, I think it's the best.
Good for you, man. So forgive me, because I know I jumped all over some of your answers there, but then embedded earlier in my question was, how do you handle the handoff so that at some point a borrower doesn't say, Tiffany, why am I talking to a 20-year-old named Tiffany? I want to talk to David.
So I have a welcome email. So once I set up the structure, I do a cover letter for my team so they know what the heck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then I send the borrower a list of exactly what's going to happen. These are the next steps. This is the person you're going to talk to next. From transaction coordinator to processor to our post processor. And then at each milestone, the team sends an email saying, this is where we are. This is the next person you're going to talk to.
Got it.
So we have continuous communication. We call it our perfect loan process that we want to set up so they always hear from us.
So good.
If a customer has to call and ask us what's going on, we have failed.
I love that.
Another reason we failed is not only has the customer had to ask us, it takes too much time when people are asking us questions.
Right.
We want to beat them
it's not efficient. Yeah, absolutely.
This has been a problem. So for example, during the refi boom, I mean, look, when we blew up in March, I'll be the first to admit, I had deals 90, 100 days for refinances. And I told people right up front, look, it's going to be 60 to 90 days. People forget that. Right. So after getting enough complaints, after about 45 days in my active database, in my calendar, I have my grouping. They're 20 days in process. I send my marketing person sends out an email. You're 20 days in process. We said it was going to take 90. And then in 20 days, we said, this is day 40 on your loan, day 60, Fortunately, we haven't had to do that lately.
So good. Yeah, exactly.
Over-communicate
Exactly.
it.
I love the way you set expectations, though, by the way. And I tell my clients that those that need some help and coaching in this area, I'll say, when you go through that dialogue that say it's going to take this longer, it's going to be a little rough or whatever, say, just weave into it, this is the cost of 3% money.
Right. Now,
Come
see,
on.
I love that. I
Right?
go to swipe and adapt that.
Take it and run with it.
Yep.
Dude, I used to sell airplanes when interest rates were 14%,
Right.
like to people who didn't need them. You know, come on. Okay, so final question, because you are the money guy. You've still got that room of loan originators, but now you're talking to them like dad, right?
Mhm.
We've got some 20, 30 somethings that are making more money than they've ever made in their life. What would you say to them about their personal finances right now in December 2020?
Yep. Let me back up for a moment. I just got a notice that my AirPod is almost dying, which I can't
bet.
understand because I'm a tech expert. So if it blows up, I will get my corded one. Okay.
You bet.
What I would tell you is there's many people in America that have big hat and no cattle. So they've got the big house and the Mercedes, but they're a paycheck away from dying. I will tell you, please save your money. Put away as much money as you can right now, because there is going to be 10 originators chasing every deal. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or a year or 2 years, but it's going to happen.
Great.
So live well below your means.
It's so good, man. One of my clients, Ryan Hills, just said that his mentor, when he first got into the business, said, you need to establish your budget for your worst year in the business. And that's what he's done. So it's like everything else is gravy, right? Dude, I drive a 17-year-old Honda. Do you know why? Because I don't care. You know, we've got another car that's nice, right? But that car is kind of my errands car, my airport car, I used to call it, although thankfully I don't go to the airport very much. But I like it so much more than I like a car payment. Like, why would I be making payments on a depreciating asset? Explain that one to me.
Right, exactly.
Makes no sense. Dude, you're ridiculous. I wish that we got a chance to hang out more. I love your transparency. I love the way that you poured into our audience today. And you're a stud, man. I'm really proud of what you've built, David. I so appreciate you making this time for us. And if there's ever anything I can do to serve you, reach out. Let me know what it is.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you having me on here. And I just want to tell those originators out there, this business can be unbelievable. It can be an annuity business. Work it like an annuity business.
Yeah.
And I've always said it's a get rich slowly business. But as that database grows, it will get easier and easier every year. Perfect close. Couldn't have scripted a better close. Thank you very much, my friend. Really appreciate it. Happy holidays to you. Enjoy this time. And thanks again for sharing. Really appreciate it. You got it, Bill. Thanks for having me. See you, buddy. All right, bye.